Hello everyone from around the world. I'm speaking to you from Saigon, Vietnam, and right now on your screen, you're seeing a spinning globe. In today's story, I'll take you to explore a mysterious and spiritual location right here in the heart of Saigon. The place we're talking about is near Cho Cau Bridge, on Quang Trung, to KY Street, District 12. This is the story of a college student who moved into a rented house in that area. And during his time living there, he experienced something that changed him forever. Let's dive into the story together. To make things more engaging, I've given names to the characters in this story. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm Fogman Stories. Chapter 1. The Window Without Curtains. I moved into that house on a drizzly afternoon, right when Saigon was entering its muggiest season of the year. The two-story house sat in a narrow alley near Cho Cau Bridge. Address clearly printed: 1/5 D Quang Trung Street, Ward 14, District 12. I figured it was called Cho Cau Bridge because there was a market right next to the bridge, just as lively as any market in Saigon. At first, I hesitated. The house sat directly under the bridge, and the sound of cars overhead was constant, day and night, but the rent was unbelievably cheap, only half the price of similar places in Go Vap or Tan Binh. The landlord was easygoing, and the lease had no strict conditions. So I moved in. The house had 3 levels, a ground floor, 2 upper floors. Downstairs was the living room and kitchen. The first floor had 2 bedrooms. The second floor had an empty room and a rooftop terrace. I started off using just 1 room on the first floor. For convenience, it was spacious, with a big window facing the bridge. Oddly, it had no curtains. The previous tenant left behind some furniture, an old wooden wardrobe, a desk, and a gray standing fan with peeling paint. That first night, I lay in bed, listening to the echoing hum of traffic overhead. It sounded like a murmur, like people talking just outside the window. I pulled the blanket over my head, telling myself it was just because I hadn't gotten used to the place yet. But then things started getting strange from the second night. Around 3 a.m., I woke up feeling like something heavy was pressing down on my chest. Not just fatigue, it felt like someone was sitting on me. I tried to move my limbs, but nothing responded. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. My eyes were open. I could see the ceiling clearly. See the window still slightly ajar like it was in the afternoon. That feeling lasted about a minute, then suddenly vanished. I sat up, drenched in sweat. At that point, I still didn't think much of it. Maybe it was stress, I told myself. Fatigue can mess with your mind. But on the third night, it happened again, same time, 3 a.m. The only difference this time was that along with the pressure, I could hear a faint whisper near my ear. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like someone was sighing. At first, I thought maybe it was from the nearby market. Maybe the vendors were getting up early and chatting as they set up shop. But then I thought again. No, it wasn't that. I jumped up, turned on all the lights. The house was dead silent. I went to the kitchen for a drink of water and saw the kitchen light flicker once, then stayed on. That's when I started feeling uneasy. The next morning, I brought my laptop to a small cafe at the end of the alley to work. and chatted with the middle-aged owner, a woman named Hong. I casually asked about the house, and she looked at me strangely. "You moved into 1/5D? That houses had a few tenants. None stayed long." I was surprised. "Why not? Something wrong with the place?" She just gave a faint smile, then sighed. "It's a strange one. That house. Not broken or anything, but people always say they can't sleep well. Maybe it's just the noise from the bridge. You're young. Should be fine." I gave a half smile and went home, mind spinning. That night I rearranged the bed, changed the sleeping direction, left a small light on. Still, I got the pressure on my chest. One night, I decided to stay awake to see what really happened. At 3 a.m. I made some coffee and opened my laptop. As the clock crept toward 3, the whole house seemed to change. The air wasn't cool anymore. It felt thick, hot, like someone had lit a fire in the kitchen. I walked down to check. Nothing out of the ordinary. As I climbed back to my room, the door to the second floor room creaked open slightly. I was sure I had shut it earlier. I walked over to close it, and suddenly a breeze came out of the room. Even though no windows were open, the smell inside was odd, a musty dampness, mixed with the scent of hair left wet for too long. I slammed the door shut and went straight back downstairs. From that point on, I never went upstairs at night again. A week later, I invited a friend over, Nam, a practical guy, not the superstitious type. I told him about the pressure at night, the whispers, doors opening. He laughed. Probably old wiring. The door? Must have been wind. That night, Nam stayed over. We shared the room on the first floor. The next morning, he woke up before me, pale-faced. "Hey, I'm not sleeping here again. Last night, I saw someone staring at us through the window." I froze. "You saw clearly?" He nodded. "Couldn't see the face. Just a black silhouette. Thought maybe you forgot to lock the door. So I went to check. But when I got to the door, no one was there. I opened it, looked around, nothing. I didn't say anything more. Deep down, I knew this wasn't just fatigue. And it wasn't just an old house. Something was not right with this place. I began asking around. Most neighbors avoided talking, but one older motorbike driver named Wah whispered to me, "That house. Someone used to live there for a long time. Then left without a word. No one knows why. Since then, people come and go quickly. No one stays past one rainy season." I went home and stood by the first floor window, looking up at the second floor. The door was still ajar, just like the first day. I decided to go up again, but not at night. During the day, I opened the second floor room. It was empty. On the wall was a faint stain, like a large photo had once been hung there and removed. On the wooden floor, a long scratch ran from the window to the opposite wall. I pulled over the old chair to sit, and noticed a small piece of paper, caught in a breeze and fluttering out from under the chair. It was written in ballpoint pen. 307. Do not sleep. Don't leave the window open. I let it fall. The paper floated to the floor, light as air, and the room at that moment felt frozen in time. Chapter 2. The noise in the kitchen. Ever since I found that note warning me about 307, I started changing my entire routine. I set my alarm for 2:59 every morning. As long as I stayed awake, I wouldn't get that awful pressure on my chest or wake up in a cold sweat. But things shifted. The strange events at night didn't stop, they just changed. No more sleep paralysis. No more whispers. Instead, I started hearing noises from the kitchen. At first, it was soft, just faint clinks. Like someone putting away dishes. I live alone, and I'm very tidy. After every meal, I clean up everything. Nothing is ever left out. So when I lay in bed and heard pans lightly clanging or the gentle thud of a lid being set down, I knew something was off. I got up, thinking it might be rats. I grabbed a small wooden stick and crept downstairs without turning on the lights. Using only the flashlight on my phone, I stopped at the kitchen doorway and looked inside. Nothing. Everything was in place, counters clean, dishes dry, no sign of disturbance. I turned on the lights. The fluorescent light buzzed softly, illuminating every corner. There were no signs of a break-in. No rats, no moved objects. But on the tiled floor, there was a thin streak of water, curving across the surface like a trail left by a wet footstep. I wiped the floor, trying to stay calm, but from that night on, I heard the noises every single night. Sometimes it was the sound of dishes, other times water running. The strangest one was a night I stayed up late working. The kitchen light flickered exactly 3 times, then stayed on for the rest of the night. The next morning, I sat down again at the cafe and spoke to Ms. Hong. I told her about the noises. Her face dropped. "Do you cook often?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, I mostly eat out. Just instant noodles or tea sometimes." She nodded slowly. "That kitchen. Someone used to love cooking in it. But, well, just make sure you keep the kitchen tidy. Lock it up at night." I pressed further. "Who was it? The tenant before me?" She paused. "I don't really know. But once, I saw a woman in that kitchen. Long black hair, wearing a white dress. But when I looked again, she was gone." A chill ran down my spine. I remembered my dream, the woman in the kitchen, with dripping hair, holding a broken bowl. That night, I placed my phone in the kitchen to record audio overnight. I didn't dare set up a camera. I wasn't sure I wanted to see anything. In the morning, I played back the recording. From around 2:50 a.m. to 3:10. It was all normal. The sound of insects outside. The whirring of my fan. But at exactly 3:07, I heard a distinct thump, like a bowl being set on the counter. Then a chair quietly sliding back. And finally, a faint tune. Someone was singing. It was distant, unclear, but definitely a voice, soft and emotional. Like a lullaby or a traditional Vietnamese folk song. My heart pounded. I listened again, increasing the volume. The melody was unmistakably Kai Luong, a form of Vietnamese opera. The sound wasn't electronic, not from a radio. It was from inside the house. From that day on, I never walked past the kitchen after midnight again. One morning, I ran into Mr. Wang, the motorbike driver. I asked him more about the tenants before me. He scratched his head and said, "There was a girl who used to live there. Ran a food stall. Every day, she'd be up early cooking. The whole alley smelled amazing. She was cheerful, polite, but one day, she was just gone." I asked, "She moved out?" He shook his head. No, just vanished. People thought she went back to her hometown. Nobody really paid attention. But after that, the place started getting weird. People came and went. No one stayed long. I returned home and stood in the kitchen. I suddenly had the strange feeling that someone was standing right behind me, watching silently. I didn't turn around. I walked straight upstairs and shut the door. That night, I dreamed a long, vivid dream. In it, I was standing in the kitchen, but I wasn't me. I was a young woman, wearing a white dress, cooking soup on the gas stove. Behind me stood a man, his face blurry, smiling faintly. I turned to look at him, and woke up in a sweat. I didn't know what that dream meant. Maybe my imagination had run wild. But the more I saw, heard, and felt in that house, the more I knew it was real. And that's when I decided to find out who lived there before me. Chapter 3. The person WHO lived before me. I had to know the truth. This house clearly held some kind of memory, not one people talk about openly, but something lingering in every quiet corner. The first thing I did was check the old wooden cabinet in my room on the first floor. It had 3 drawers, but the bottom one was stuck. I pulled hard and it finally gave way, crashing to the ground with a thud. Inside was a small notebook, yellowed with age, no name on the cover. I flipped through it. Most pages were mundane notes, utility payments, reminders, daily to dose. But here and there were strange lines. Remember to lock the 3rd floor door. Don't let the breeze in. 307. Better not be asleep. At the very end of the notebook was a phone number written in red ink. Call if you want to know the truth, Hoi. Without hesitation, I dialed it. The phone rang for a few seconds before someone picked up. Hello? I hesitated. Hi, my name's Min. I just moved into the house at 1/5 D Quang Trung. I found your number in an old notebook. There was a brief silence. Then the voice replied, So you've moved in. A chill ran down my spine. He didn't ask who I was. He didn't sound surprised. It was as if he had been expecting this. Are you Hoi? I asked. Yeah. Have the noises in the kitchen started yet? I was stunned. They have. And I've had those heavy sleep episodes too. His voice dropped lower. That house. Everyone hears something. But not everyone stays long enough to notice the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor? I haven't even been up there. Then don't go. Especially not at night. And whatever you do, don't stand near the window at 307. My skin prickled. How long did you live there? 3 months. Everything was fine at first. But by the 3rd month, I started hearing soft laughter at night. It was subtle, like someone chuckling alone in a corner. At first I thought it was from the neighbors. But then one night, I saw something I can't forget. He paused. I was up late. Almost 3 a.m. I heard the door to the 3rd floor creak open. I thought it was the wind. I went up to check, and the door was wide open, even though I was sure I'd locked it. Inside, there was a wooden chair facing the window, and on the chair was a white cloth. I swallowed hard. Did you see anyone? No, but there were fresh handprints on the window, like someone had just stood there, looking out. Did you move out right away? Not immediately. I stayed 1 more week. But during that week, Every single night at exactly 3:07, the light on the third floor would flicker 3 times. Then I'd hear footsteps pacing around the rooftop. I couldn't take it anymore. I left in the middle of the night. Didn't even ask for my deposit back. Never returned. After the call, my heart felt heavy. It wasn't the fear that gripped me. It was the sense that I had stepped into a story that wasn't mine. Yet somehow I was now a part of it. I decided to go to the third floor during the day. The staircase leading up was narrow and steep, dusty from disuse. The wooden door at the top was warped slightly, and the handle had a crack like it had been forced open before. I tried the knob, locked. I searched for a key but couldn't find one. Eventually, I pried the lock open with a screwdriver. After a few minutes of effort, it gave way. The door creaked open, and the air that rushed out was thick and stale. Not rotting, exactly, but old, like damp paper and unwashable fabric. Inside was exactly as Hoy had described, a single wooden chair facing the window. On it lay a piece of white cloth, yellowed at the edges. In one corner of the room was a ceiling fan missing its blades. And on the far wall was a faint square, the trace of a large picture that had once hung there. I stepped toward the window. From here, I could see the whole Cho Cau bridge and the constant stream of vehicles below. But on the glass pane, I noticed smudged handprints, barely visible. I instinctively reached out to touch the glass, and suddenly, a gust of wind burst in from the open window, making the cloth on the chair flutter to the ground. The sound was barely audible, but in that moment, I felt like someone had just stepped out of the room. I turned around, nothing. But the daylight in the room seemed dimmer somehow. I picked up the cloth. In the corner was a tiny embroidered initial in blue thread, TH. I brought it downstairs and placed it inside the cupboard. Then I opened the old notebook again. On one page, scribbled messily, it read, "Thou, she never really left. That night, I stayed awake again. I let the clock pass 3:07 while sitting in my room with the lights on. When the clock struck, I stepped out into the hallway and looked up toward the third floor. Nothing. But as I took one more step up the stairs, the light on the third floor blinked once. Then went dark. I froze, cold sweat trickling down my back. I turned and walked back down. The next morning, I found the white cloth, the one I had placed in the cupboard, neatly folded on the dining table. Beside it was a white ceramic bowl, cracked slightly at the rim. I had never seen it before. Chapter 4. Under the Staircase. The appearance of the white cloth and the cracked bowl on the dining table deeply unsettled me. I hadn't taken the cloth out of the cupboard. No one else had access to the house. I locked the doors every night. I lived alone. If I said I wasn't scared, I'd be lying. But I still hadn't left. I didn't know if it was curiosity or something else, something that kept me there. This time, I didn't let it pass. I started keeping a record of everything. I wrote down the sounds I heard, the time they happened, what I was doing. I posted sticky notes around the house to track patterns. Every night, I stayed awake until past 3:07. No matter what I did, the kitchen light would flicker 3 times at exactly that time, then stay on. One day, while cleaning the living room, I decided to clear out the space under the staircase, an area I had mostly ignored. Dust coated everything. Cobwebs clung to the corners. I shone my flashlight into the shadows and spotted a wooden box pushed deep against the wall. The box was dark brown, scratched and worn, with a rusted lock barely hanging on. I dragged it out. The lid almost came off on its own. Inside was a fabric-covered notebook, a few folded papers, and an old photo. I opened the notebook first. It was a diary, neat handwriting, slanted slightly, definitely a woman's. Each entry was short, dated carefully. Thursday, October 2nd, 1999. It rained this morning. The stall was slow. He came late, didn't say anything, just looked at me and left. I think he's moving out. Saturday, October 4th. Got up at 4 a.m. to cook. Something feels off. Last night I heard footsteps in the hallway, but when I opened the door, no one was there. Tuesday, October 7th. I dreamt I was in the kitchen, but I couldn't move. Someone stood behind me, chuckling. My heartbeat quickened. I turned to the last pages, and the handwriting had become shaky. If someone finds this diary, please burn it. Don't let anyone else hear the singing at 3:07. I don't want anyone to go through what I did. At the very bottom, it was signed in tiny letters, "Thou." I set the notebook down and picked up the photograph. It showed a young woman in a white dress, standing beside a man in a plain office shirt. His face felt oddly familiar. I flipped the photo over. On the back, it read, N.T. Quang Trung House, 1997. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Ms. Hong. She said she had just run into Mr. T, the landlord. Apparently, he lived abroad but came back occasionally. Every time he returned, he would pass by the house 3 times, but never went inside. I asked her to send me a photo. When it arrived, my heart skipped. The older man in the photo was clearly the same man standing beside the woman in the old picture. I started to understand. This house didn't just carry strange energy. It carried a memory someone tried to bury. That night, I sat in the kitchen again. On the table, I laid out the photograph, the diary, the white cloth, and the cracked bowl. I left the light dim and cracked the kitchen door just a little, letting in the night breeze. I don't know why, I just felt like I was waiting for someone. At exactly 3:07, the light flickered 3 times. The faucet dripped slowly. I closed my eyes and stayed quiet. Then I heard footsteps, soft, careful, descending from the stairs. No one appeared, but a scent drifted into the room, the smell of old shampoo, damp hair, and a hint of broth from a bowl of Boon Ryu. I opened my eyes. The cloth on the table rippled gently, as if stirred by air. The kitchen felt warmer, not in temperature, but in presence. For the first time, I didn't feel afraid. The next morning, I wrote a letter and mailed it to the landlord's address, along with a copy of the diary and the photo. I don't know if he ever replied, but I figured, some things deserve to be faced, not for guilt, but for closure. Chapter 5. 3:07 a.m. Weeks passed with no reply from the landlord. I wasn't surprised. If I were him, I might not have answered either. Some parts of the past are too heavy to face. But the house didn't stay quiet. Ever since I mailed that letter, the strange happenings changed. The noises were different now. Not just footsteps or flickering lights. I began hearing a soft crying, almost every night, coming from behind the bathroom wall on the second floor. At first, I thought it was the pipes, or maybe rats, but when I pressed my ear to the wall behind the toilet, I heard it clearly, a baby's cry, muffled and distant, as if coming from deep within the wall. I told Mr. Wah, the motorbike driver. He sighed. You might have stirred up something that didn't want to be remembered. Be careful. Sometimes memories come back, and they bring company. His words stuck with me. I hired a local handyman to help check behind the wall. After getting basic permission from the landlord, who still hadn't acknowledged my letter, we removed a few tiles from the bathroom wall. Behind it was a small cavity, hollow, like a secret compartment. Inside was a rusted metal box. Embedded into the structure, we pulled it out and placed it on the ground. I opened it slowly. Inside were several items. A pair of baby socks, a faded plastic bracelet, and an old photograph of the same young woman in a white dress. In one corner of the photo was a handwritten note. You are the reason I kept going. I swallowed hard. Clearly, these were personal belongings, not just hidden, but sealed away so no one would ever find them. That night, I finally set up a camera on the third floor. Facing the wooden chair, I switched on night mode. I didn't sleep. I waited until morning to check the footage. At first, everything looked normal. From 3:06 to 3:08 a.m., the room was still. But at exactly 3 hours 7 minutes and 30 seconds, the window creaked open slightly, though no wind blew. Then, a blurry shape passed across the frame, fast, but unmistakably human-like, as if someone had walked through the room. The camera shook once, then steadied. The room returned to silence. I watched it again and again. I couldn't deny what I saw. I called Hoy, the former tenant. He only said one thing. You've seen what I didn't dare to look at. I wasn't afraid anymore, but I knew I couldn't stay. I told the landlord I had to move out due to work abroad. I didn't explain further. My last night in the house, I lit a candle in the kitchen. I laid out the white cloth, the cracked bowl, the diary, and the photo. I added a note. If you're still here, it's okay to leave. Someone remembered you. Someone forgot you. But you deserve peace. As the candle flickered out, I felt a soft breeze pass through the kitchen. Light, but real, as if someone had finally stepped outside. The next morning, I moved out. I looked back at the house one last time. The second floor window slowly swung shut. I never knew who closed it. Chapter 6. The House Beneath the Overpass. I left without saying goodbye to anyone. Only the soft roar of traffic overhead followed me out. Like a quiet farewell from the bridge. I moved into an old apartment in Govap, nothing special, but peaceful. No more 3:07 wake-ups. No more dreams of a woman in white standing in my kitchen. The details began to fade, the white cloth, the bowl, the diary, like a long dream that slowly slips away. But every time someone mentioned Quang Trung Street, something pulled at my chest, as if a thread still connected me to that place. 2 months later, Ms. Hong called. She told me the house at 1/5D had been demolished. The area beneath Cho Cau Bridge was being cleared for a new infrastructure project. Nobody protested. The house was old, damp, and carried a heavy air no one wanted to breathe. But she added something strange. During the demolition, when the excavator dug into one of the corner pillars, the machine got stuck on something hard. Workers thought it was metal or stone. But when they dug further, they found a grayish-white mass. Smooth like polished rock, but shaped like. I didn't want to finish that thought. Officials came to check. The area was taped off. Nothing appeared in the news. No one spoke of it again. That night, I dreamt of the house one last time. But this time, there were no cries, no whispers, only a soft, sorrowful melody, a Kai Luong tune, drifting from the kitchen. In the dream, I saw the woman in white on the 3rd floor, standing by the window. Her hair danced in the wind. Her face was calm, peaceful. She slowly faded into sunlight. I woke up feeling light, not afraid, just full. Not everyone understands what it's like to be held by a place. But I know now that some houses aren't just bricks and wood. Some carry emotions, regrets, and stories that were never told. And sometimes, all they need is for someone to listen. I still pass by that empty lot from time to time. Nothing's been built there yet. Grass grows wild. The wind feels different. Every time I drive past, I lower the window and take a deep breath. And in my heart, I hear a whisper. She's gone now, but this place still remembers. Some houses remember. Some refuse to let go. I no longer believe in accidents. I believe in places that feed on sorrow. In corners where time never really moves on. The house beneath the overpass? It still waits. The house beneath the overpass. So that's the story. What do you think? Did you feel that eerie tension too? Even though I'm just retelling it, I have to admit, my hands still get cold just remembering it. Every time I pass by that old house, yes, that very address under Cho Cau Bridge, I tell myself, just keep walking, don't look. But somehow, as if something is pulling at me, my eyes always turn toward it. It's like the house still remembers, still waits, and somehow, it's always watching. I've known about that location ever since I first came to Saigon years ago. But until now, I'd never heard such a detailed, spine-tingling version of what happened inside. Reading this story felt like opening a door I was never meant to touch. And now that it's open, it's hard to close again. That's why I wanted to share it with you. Not just as a scary tale, but as a piece of the city's spiritual memory. A glimpse into the places most people walk past without ever knowing what once lingered there. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end. If you enjoy these kinds of mysterious and haunting stories from Vietnam, please consider subscribing to the channel. It means the world to me. And it helps Fogman Stories continue exploring more places like this. Until next time, keep your lights on and your mind open. This is Fogman, signing off from Saigon. See you in the next video.